Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, love letters to a nation on Valentine's Day. The two frontrunners in Nigeria's presidential election spend their last day of campaigning trying to win over voters. President Muhammadu Buhari says the country's made great progress whilst he's been in office. Rival Atiku Abubakar, an ex-vice president, says not so much. Also, France 24's obtained new documents about the 1994 genocide in Rwanda. They appear to show that there were disagreements between the Elysée Palace and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here in France about how to deal with those responsible for the mass killing of Tutsis in Rwanda. But first, Thursday was the last day that candidates in Nigeria's presidential election could woo voters with campaigning. So just as well, it fell on Valentine's Day. President Muhammadu Buhari took to television to defend his record, saying that Africa's biggest economy was back to steady growth after emerging from a recession in 2016, and that he'd made substantial inroads into tackling security risks. His main rival, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, is representing the opposition PDP. He fired up crowds of supporters in his native Adamawa in the northeast. Both candidates say that they have what the country needs, even though for many, they represent the old guard.
The road to greater prosperity for Nigeria may be long, but what you can be assured of is a leadership that is not prepared to sacrifice the future well-being of Nigerians for our own personal and material needs. You can be assured of my commitment to remain focused on working to improve the lives of all Nigerians.
You know, when PDP governed this country, there was unity, there was prosperity, there was development, there was unity. When APC took over, it is unemployment, it is hunger, it is poverty, it is insecurity. Oh my God, let them go, let them go, let them go.
Well, Buhari said on Thursday that the economy is back on track. Our Chika Odua is in Abuja, and she tells us more about the credibility of the president's claims on that front.
They are partly credible. Number one, it is true that the economy is slowly coming back to life. In 2015, 2016, the economy was in a terrible position after the global oil prices fell. Nigeria, of course, is heavily dependent on oil to survive. So he has been able to get the economy to come back up. And the reason why he's doing this is because of diversification. Buhari is putting a huge amount of investment on agriculture. When he spoke tonight to the nation, he did say that commodities such as rice production, sorghum production, and cassava is increasing, so that is very good. But yes, he's right technically, but the thing about it is that people are still not feeling the effects of this economic rising. For example, socioeconomic factors still show that many Nigerians are living in poverty. For example, last year, Nigeria actually surpassed India in having the world's largest number of people living in absolute poverty. So technically, yes, the economy is coming up, but people still are not really feeling the effects.
So when we look at Muhammadu Buhari on one hand, we've got Atiku Abubakar on the other. Both candidates are pretty old. Now, Africa as a continent has the world's largest youth population. Are young Nigerians feeling that their hopes are represented by either option that they're being presented with as president?
Well, no, these men do not reflect the general populace of Nigeria, right? So these guys are both in their 70s. 63% of Nigerians are under the age of 25. But Nigerians are trying to make this more about competence. Who is actually going to take Nigeria to the next level? And so that's what they're looking at. Which president can actually do what it takes to unleash the huge potential that Nigeria has? So that question will actually be answered on Saturday when mostly young Nigerians go to the polls.
Now, we heard on Thursday militants from the oil-producing Niger Delta vowing to cripple the economy if Muhammadu Buhari is re-elected. Why are they so opposed to him, and are there any real threats to his campaign?
This is a huge threat that needs to be taken quite seriously because they did a lot of damage in 2016. They were able to destroy a lot of pipelines, and what they did as far as destroying those pipelines did contribute to pushing Nigeria's economy down into a recession. So we have to take these threats very seriously. The Niger Delta vendors have endorsed the opposition candidate, Atiku Abubakar. They think that he will do better in business and also trying to bring some of the oil wealth down to them. So this threat should be taken seriously. But they also have to realize that if they damage the pipelines, they will also be negatively impacted because that will affect what monies actually come to their region, if at all. So this is something that should be taken seriously. And I'm sure that Buhari will be paying attention to what the Niger Delta vendors have to say.
Chika, we don't have much time, but just very quickly, does Boko Haram pose much of a threat to the to Saturday's election in terms of the logistics?
A huge threat. I mean, just a few days ago, we saw that Boko Haram was able to attack the convoy of a governor in northeastern Nigeria, and they've upped their attacks in the past 3 months. So yes, it's a huge threat, and Buhari ensures that people in the northeast will be able to go out to vote safely, but you never know what Boko Haram has planned. They have managed to really cripple an entire generation of people in the northeast. So on Saturday, we just hope for the best as far as maintaining security in that part of Nigeria, a very restive part of the region.
Chika Odua there for us in Abuja. Now, an independent autopsy has corroborated that Kenyan rights activist Caroline Watha died whilst having an abortion. Watha, who worked in combating Kenya's notorious police brutality, went missing last Wednesday. The sensitivity of her work led friends and colleagues to fear that she may have become a target herself. There was widespread skepticism when police said that her body was found in a Nairobi morgue after having died during a botched abortion. Well, on Thursday, a pathologist hired by Watha's family told journalists that was indeed the cause of her death. Now, a Kenyan court has sentenced a former senior police officer to death for killing a detainee in his custody. Nahashon Mutua was convicted in December for the murder of Martin Koum after he was found dead in his cell in 2013. It's a rare conviction. Activists have long accused Kenyan police of using excessive force with impunity. A police oversight authority was set up in 2011 to foster prosecutions for abusers, but victims of police brutality rarely have much hope of a follow-up. Death sentences in Kenya are generally commuted to life imprisonment. Now, France 24 has obtained new documents about the 1994 genocide in Rwanda. They appear to show that there were disagreements between the Elysée Palace and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs about how to deal with those responsible for the mass killing of Tutsis in Rwanda. Around 800,000 people, mostly Tutsis, were slaughtered in less than 100 days. This report by Michael Stanke and Emeline Marot-Andreu.
In July 1994, the members of the Rwandan interim government fled the capital Kigali and entered Congo, which was then called Zaire. The members of that government were Hutu extremists who were responsible for the genocide of the Tutsis. On the 15th of July, they were in Cyangugu in the humanitarian area controlled by the French army. The French ambassador in Kigali warned Paris. Here is his diplomatic cable.
We know that the authorities played an important role in the genocide. Despite the difficulties, we do not have any other choice but to stop them.
That same day, the headline of a Reuters article was, Paris ready to arrest Rwandan government members. Hubert Védrine, a top official from the Elysée Palace, wrote this next to the headline.
Read by the President. This is not what was said in the Prime Minister's office.
The decision not to arrest them was taken at the highest level.
I don't see how France at the time could have done something, because there was no clear mandate from the Security Council. It would have been different if the Security Council's mandate had said there will be both a humanitarian operation and also one to arrest those who we are certain were responsible for what happened. The United Nations mandate was a humanitarian one, not a judicial one. It was not the armed wing of a criminal court.
Jacques Langsade, the head of the French army under President François Mitterrand, said France had no choice but to remain neutral.
We did not have the power to arrest people who are now considered to have taken part in the genocide.
poursuivre des gens qu'on a considérés, qu'on considère aujourd'hui comme étant des...
To look after those who committed the genocide was not our problem. I mean, we did not have that right.
C'était pas notre problème. Nous n'avions pas le... C'est pas notre problème. C'est-à-dire que nous n'avions pas le droit de le faire.
But the French Foreign Ministry disagreed at the time, according to this journalist who's written books on the topic.
The French ambassador Yannick Girard, who is on the ground, who is on the political side, not on the military side, is pushing Paris and the French army to intervene, to stop those who committed the genocide and arrest them. In Paris, around that time, the French Foreign Minister, Alain Juppé, promised that those responsible for the genocide would be arrested, but in the end, their evacuation was organized and they were not arrested.
Subsequently, 17 of the interim government's 21 members were charged with genocide by the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks very much for joining us, and do so again if you can. Take care.